with On the Line Sports Media, man. Listen, today is part two of our OG coaching series, man. Our guest today is a phenomenal guy, man. Actually, he's one of the guys that handed me my very first loss as a youth football coach, man. 50 to donut. But guess what? He made me better, man. The guy we're talking about today, man, he's a true legend in the sport, man. Took over the Mid Hill Panthers in 1998, grew that program from 90 kids to over 300 kids, winners of multiple state championships, national championships, man, across a couple different leagues. Helped build the Mid Hill Chargers as well. Established the NCYF, led his team to national champions there, including the AYF title. Earned the 2010 Coach of the Year in the AYF. Went head to head and beat Coach Prime in the in the Under Armour All American game. That's huge. Man, other than that, man, he's made a huge impact in the city, man. Coached a lot of these kids that became household names. Some of those kids went on to play college ball, man. Again, man, one of the true legends in the sport, man. Helped feed Butler and Independence some of those state championship programs as well, man. Today's guest, man, was a thorn in my side, but a pleasure to coach with, man. We become great friends over the years, man. You know, I've learned that this guy's just a fierce competitor, man, but an even more awesome friend, man. So help me welcome to the show, my man, Mike Fairfax, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate
We
it,
appreciate
brother.
you coming on the
Appreciate it.
line,
Appreciate
man.
it.
How's it been, man? I appreciate you making this ride down. I know you live so far away, man.
I'm just an old farmer now.
It's an old farmer.
I'm just an old farmer
He
now.
done kicked enough butt on the football field.
Man.
You might as well go out and plow some grass now, right?
Yeah.
So, Mike, man, let's just jump right into it, man. Take us back to the beginning, man. How'd you get started in this journey coaching youth football?
I never thought about it. I really didn't. When I had moved to Atlanta. I'm really an OG here. I grew up playing youth football in this city.
Right.
I played for the old CYAC Golden Bears out of the Devonshire Elementary and Cochran Middle School, junior high back then. So I grew up playing there. Played football at Hawthorne Junior High School, and then called it quits for my career and went to work. I had to go to work for a living. But as far as coaching goes, I'd moved to Atlanta, and my oldest son started playing in Atlanta at 7. So when we moved back here, I wanted to live in the Mint Hill area, had some ties to the Mint Hill area. Obviously, I graduated from Independence High School. And so we moved in, and Mint Hill Athletic Association had a football squad. They played Pop Warner. So I signed my son up and had no intentions to coach and stood on the sideline. And back then, the mayor of Mint Hill, Brad Simmons, he was my son's coach. He kept pulling me closer to the field and closer to the field and closer to the field. And by the end of the season, I was on the field coaching the offense. And so the very next season, me and a fellow named Tommy Warner got handed the Mint Hill program, Mint Hill Panthers. It was in need of a transfusion, so to speak. They were down to about 90 kids, and we took it over. And that first year for me, it was junior Pee Wee, and my opening game was against the defending Powell South Raiders. And I got beat 48-0.
Oh, so turnaround's fair play. My first game coaching was against the national champion Mid Hill Panthers. 50-0.
So I went home and said, wow, we're not going to be able to compete that way. And I learned a lot. And that first year, I think we finished 4-3 as a junior Pee Wee team, which was a big deal for Mint Hill because most of the time on Saturdays, it wasn't a question, did anybody win? It was, did anybody score?
Right.
That's how bad the program was at the time. And we built the program up, about 300 kids. We had multiple teams at each weight class. And I really liked Pop Warner, didn't have much problem with it. Nationally, I liked it. Locally, the local leadership, we didn't see eye to eye a lot. As Coach said, I am competitive, really competitive. And we built competitive teams, and they didn't like it much. But that's really how I got started into the coaching world. It wasn't anything
kind of by
but I would say my kids got me into it.
Right.
It's not what kept me in it. It is what got me into it. But I coached several teams I didn't have any kids on. Once I got in, I fell in love with it.
Right, man. Let's talk about that a little bit, man. Uh, you say you took over the Mint Hill Panthers in '98 and grew it to a powerhouse. What are some of the keys to building a strong program and a sustainable program?
Well, what I'll say is I never set out to win. Winning wasn't the first thing
Okay.
for us. It was like I said, I mean, I got my rear end handed to me by Pal South. I mean, I just stood there in awe and watched this team. And we didn't have the best athletes, but
Right.
so I thought, man, I better make them as good as I can make them mentally,
Right.
from an IQ standpoint. I want to teach them the game. And my youngest son, I never thought he would. I mean, my oldest son, I never thought he would be a football player, but man, he fell in love with it. He should be coaching right now, to be honest with you. He has just a magnificent mind for the game, but he was in love with it. So we took on to learn together, and so for us, it was teaching the kids the game, um, teaching the kids discipline, um, trying to. I hate to say this, but toughen them up, man.
Absolutely, man.
I mean, it's part of the game,
Absolutely.
and you know, I always wanted the kids when they came out of my program, I wanted them to say, Coach Mike was tough, but
Fair.
he was fair, and you know, I had parents that didn't know me. I'll give you an example. Sean Wiggins. I mean, if
I
you
know
coached
Sean.
at
Yep.
Butler,
Yep.
Sean played at Butler, won a couple.
Great linebacker.
Great linebacker. Went to Ball State, played. Sean's mom said he'd never play for me. She said I was too tough. He'd never play for me. Well, at 7 years old, he showed up out here with a mohawk, and she signed him up, and he played on my team. And after year two, she'd tell parents, "My son will never play for anybody
I
but
know that's
Coach
right.
Mike," because they knew I was tough. They knew I was fair. They knew I was teaching life lessons. And I always looked at football kind of like this. It's the essence of team sports,
Absolutely.
right? One guy's not going to win a
Nope.
football game, okay? But within that team concept, every guy has to win a one-on-one battle,
Absolutely.
probably on every play, right? So there's one-on-one in it, but it's the ultimate, the consummate team sport. So um, it's just teaching discipline, teaching the game. I know it's funny, guys would ask me, how do you get them kids to do that? I mean, I'm not kidding you. I bought a playbook for y'all to see. We were teaching zones, blocking schemes to 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they say, how do you get kids to do that?
Sure.
And I said, well, they know more than you think they do. And if you don't
Absolutely.
believe that, try to beat one of them in Madden on
Right.
Xbox
There you
or
go.
PlayStation, right? They know more than you think. And we never just taught do this. We taught do this, and this is why you
Why?
do this. So it was really just education. It was hard. It was hard work. I pushed them hard, but that was really it.
Now, man, that's one of the things I loved about playing against Mint Hill. Um, it made us better. Lady Sports Saints, it made us better. That was the one game we circled. We weren't, not to be rude, but we really weren't worried about anybody else. We knew those teams were going to be tough. They were going to be prepared. They was going to play sound football. Nothing fancy. Line up X's and O's and get it done. So that in turn truly made me a better coach because I knew what I had to prepare for and what I had to prepare my players for. So we definitely applaud you for that because you definitely raised the bar for us, man. We appreciate that, and we turned out some pretty good players because of that, man. So uh, I know you've been out of the game for a little while,
A
uh,
long while.
but I heard you mentioned earlier that you went to a game and didn't realize what was going on. Like, tell us a little bit about the old school football that we know and what's currently happening right now. What's the major difference that you see?
Well, back then it was really community based. I mean, I looked at our couple of our national championship teams, and we didn't have small teams. We didn't show up with 16 kids. We showed up with 25, 26, 27
30
kids.
kids, yeah.
So we had big teams. And so you look at some of those pictures and you go back and you reflect and you say, wow, we had 27 kids on the team, and 25 of them lived in Mint Hill, and the two who didn't, they lived right across the line up here in Union County. So it was community based back
Right.
then, right? Beatty's Ford was really community based. Everybody, you know, derived a community based, and that's kind of what it was. And you had
The
your high
pride
school.
thing.
Yeah, you had your pride, and then you had
Mhm.
your high schools that you knew these kids were going to go to. So you worked with the high school coaches. You know, I was blessed. We had Tommy Knotts here. We had Mike Newsom here. We had Brian Hales here. So we had some great coaches here, and they recognized, and
Mhm.
they told me, they would call me and tell me and say, hey, man, when kids show up here and they say they played for Mint
You
Hill,
already know.
we, from an IQ standpoint, they're way ahead of everybody
Mhm.
else. In fact, when Mike moved up to
Kannapolis.
Kannapolis, he
Yep.
wanted to start a youth program, and he called me and said, "Help me start a youth program up here." So it was really community based, uh, kids from the community. You weren't building all star teams; you were taking kids from the community, building football teams, feeding the high schools that were around. And today, from what I understand,
It's a
it's just
huge
not.
dis it's a
It's
huge
not what's
disconnect.
happening. And it
Yeah.
sounds to me like it's let me go get all the best players from everywhere
Right.
and stack a team and try to go win a championship. And you know, I'm not in touch with it much anymore. I mean, I retired in 2010, and I got to tell you, when I retired, I
You
retired.
retired, hung
Um,
put the whistle up, threw the cleats in the
I
closet.
mean, it was kind of interesting when you reached out to me and I started pulling out some of my stuff, and it was like, wow. But it's kind of like some of it, honestly, it's kind of like a foreign language when you put it down and you don't practice it anymore. You look back, I go,
Well, what the hell?
what the heck was I doing there? But it was just all about community, and that's what I took pride in. And the town got behind us,
Right.
and we came home with a couple national championships. And they hung signs, and some of the when you come into the town of
I
Mint
remember
Hill,
that.
there's signs up for us, and it was just community pride, I think, for me and family. And we had some just amazing people, that from coaches to people that staff the
Mhm.
organizations that we built. It's just, I guess, family is probably even a bigger word.
Yeah. I think that's, kind of to your point of the disconnect from the feeders, right? Feeding the Mint Hill, I'm sorry, feeding the Butler, and let's take it back. Feeding the Northeast, feeding the Mint Hill Middle, feeding to Crestdale, and then going up to Butler and Independence, the local. I think the big disconnect here is because it's not community based anymore.
Yeah,
Because you'll have a team that's got kids from all over town, so it's really hard to feed to the next level because you don't know where that kid's going to go.
right.
You know, back in the day, our days, man, we first started coaching, it was zip code based. We was in Pop Warner. It was, you had a parameter that you could pick kids from, and it was, and like when we grew up, we played with kids in our neighborhood, so it was a neighborhood pride thing. Like I played for the Plaza. You said CYAC, which is right up the street. Then you had Dorada. All these things were basically neighborhoods,
Hmm.
essentially. But now it's become so not neighborhood friendly. Let's just say that.
Right.
But I will say this, man. When I said we circled that game, we had some epic battles,
Oh, we
man.
did. There's no
Now I
question.
can say that first game, well, I walked out there and got it handed to me, man. And you know, but it made me a better coach because I said that'll never happen again. I might lose to somebody. I ain't never losing like that again, man.
Yeah.
And one of our coaches, we had to put out a suicide watch for him, an SOS, because he came. I don't know what happened to him, man. We we had an after party planned for the first game. Boy, he wasn't nowhere to be found. I ain't gonna say no names, but he was a head coach on that junior midget team, the Saints. But man, listen, man, I remember one play vividly. It had a running back. I think his name was Demetrius or something like that.
Demetrius Camp.
Yep. And I was running a 4-4 at the time. And I decided, you know what? I'm gonna do an outside fire B gap blitz. And your quarterback came up, he looked, handed the ball, fucking ran straight up the middle of the field. He's ain't nobody there. I had vacated the whole middle, and we was playing too high safety, so they was out in the damn hash marks. But anyway, I was like, man, that play haunted me for years. But I appreciate it, man, because like I said, we made each other better. We knew that was gonna be the battle. So uh tell us a little bit more about those. That's good.